So I really love this question, what does it mean to be human? Because it just takes me straight to what does divine and divinity mean? Because obviously I'm studying to be an interfaith minister, and within that I'm learning from all these different faith paths and cultures and religions. Ooh, scary word. And I'm really finding that God, Allah, like Jesus, Muhammad, whatever, they're all about one thing. They're all about that light and dark expression that that is in our world. So when we talk about love, even when we do fall in love, it's never one linear, beautiful, easeful thing. Love includes our shadows. Love includes our angry days. Love includes grief, So I think when I think of what does it mean to be human, I think what does it mean to be a divine being? And a divine being has all the light, all the dark, and is perfectly imperfect. But that is divine perfection. And I think, very often I'm just so wanting to remind myself and others that, and then it takes us into community. What is community? What is connection? And as you and I have been exploring is relationships as well. Do we want to be in relationships that are just easy and peaceful, or do we want relationships that have ease and peace but also challenge us to grow, and challenging us to grow means sometimes being triggered. It means sometimes having parts of yourselves revealed to you that you're you haven't wanted to see, and it often means staying in the discomfort, and actually just coming back to what does it mean to be human. I think it is being able to stay in the discomfort of life, and see the light through that, experience light through that.
How would you define love? Because I think love is such an interesting one, because when you talk about divinity, the word love is very close to that, right? It's like a thread of a thread that we can all understand, and it brings us all into the same space, let's say.
Yeah, I think when I think of love, I think of divine love as something different to romantic love, as something different to family love, as something different to friendship love. When I think of divine love, I don't think I can describe what it is. It's more of a feeling of something greater, working through me, through us, through life. And when I tap into this energy of divine love, it's more this holding energy that seems to have all our backs, that maintains gravity, that propels all of us through the good times and the bad. And that leads us to destruction sometimes as well, too much of it. So, I guess when I think about divine love and love, I think of the thing that keeps the world ticking over, that source. And it's not just the beautiful side. I very much think love comes in many forms. Divine love is with us in many ways, and that's something I've learnt really in the last year more than anything, because I used to be I'm quite a sensitive person. I'm really emotional, and I hurt very easily. And we've gone through Christianity, Judaism, earth-based faith parts, and then we went into Buddhism. And Buddhism was such an interesting one for me, because obviously I had meditated over the years and read things, but I'd never really gone into that notion of suffering as a part of life. and appreciating suffering, that suffering is a part of life.
Which is very Buddhist, right?
Yeah, it's very Buddhist. And I don't think that had landed as well as it has this year. So now I'm like, oh, suffering is a part of life. Okay, what are the tools and practices that I need to hold me? And suffering is no longer this bad, dark thing. It's like part of, again, what makes us human, part of the love that whatever the God of our understanding is, bestows upon us, you know. And, you know, by all means, to anyone listening, like, I do not wish suffering upon anyone, and I don't condone any hurts or harms that happen in the world to me or anyone else.
You cannot avoid it.
But I think what I'm just alluding to is what I've like really personally come to terms with is we can't avoid it, and it's really learning to hold that. And through accepting that, I'm less like love and light. There's more resilience. When things happen, I'm like, okay, this is a challenge. There's an opportunity here. What can I learn from this environment? If it's grief, I let myself feel it. So hard, and I'm with it. And surprisingly, the more I've been letting myself feel these things, then the next day I'm like, I'm fine. Ta-da! You know, and so that's been, I'm so grateful that those teachings landed in front of me.
Yeah, I'm sure they keep happening, right?
Yeah, literally.
So this is where the term spiritual bypassing kind of feeds in, right? Because this is what tends to happen when we're like, oh, we can choose what to focus on. We can choose positivity. Let's be positive. Let's be joy, only joy. Like, there's that taint to lots of spaces that you see, and like the more we express, the more we can feel like well and good, and we can really reach for those heights. But then what can happen is that when the suffering comes in, which you can't avoid, maybe it's a death, maybe whatever it is, maybe it's a part of you that needs to die and you're not looking at it. When that comes in, do we just not look at it and go, no, I'm going to focus on the positive and bypass essentially what is the human experience, which is needing to grieve, needing to feel, essentially. It's like feeling the depths of what it is that's in front of you.
Totally. And I think for me, spiritual bypassing, it took me a really long time to understand this. And I think spiritual bypassing, the way it's shown up in my life, is not paying my taxes on time. You know, like, you know, that's also spiritually bypassing to me, you know. Like, not doing the dishes, like, for 2 days or something, you know. I think, spiritual bypassing is an interesting one. It's not only us, like, being evangelical and, like, you know, avoiding, like, you know, social justice issues, which I do think is a really big thing within the wellness community that I... not just the wellness community, actually. That's really unfair of me to, to just say that. But I think... there's ways...
It's highlighted there because it's more shocking when you see it.
Yeah.
It's like when you see people saying they're standing for something.
Yeah.
And then... But it's always our own projection of what we've assumed to be the case, or what we would assume someone that says, I have these values and this is what I want everyone to feel, to have access to like certain practices or whatever it might be, or a platform. Or so what happens there is it's more shocking when you actually see the like... the like taint to social injustice in that space.
And when we see our own shadows, because I think often what happens, and I've had it before when I've been called out for certain things, and then I've thought, oh, that makes me a bad person, and it's actually stopped me going into, oh, what that person's saying, I'm a bad person, has stopped me from actually seeing what they're bringing up. And I think that happens in spiritual communities a lot, like when things are brought up around race or race is something I can really work with, where when people are like, okay, can we have more diversity, more inclusion, and like, you know, you have like a white spiritual community being like, oh no, man, you're like going into victimhood or whatever. But I think ultimately it's sometimes when those things are brought up, people take it as we're doing something wrong, but that's not actually what's happening. And so I'm hoping, at least for 2024 and a lot of the conversations and learnings that are happening in the world, that we are all able to separate between when social justice matters are brought up and what that says about us. And I think for me, that's been a really big, something I've learned massively, to the point that now I'm like, I really appreciate it when people like name my blind spots and share the things lovingly, because I know that I'm learning. I'm like, yeah, I know that I'm learning something, and I find a way to meet them where they are with whatever the issue is, without it needing to be about what it means about me. And so, yeah, so spiritual bypassing is a thing. I can also speak into like the recent external affairs that have been happening that have been so hard for all of us, you know. Like, I've had friends on different sides of this war, you know, Israel and Palestine, and my heart has been so with everyone. And yeah, there was, you know, I did have a friend being like, Sam, please speak up for Palestine and all that's going on. And I was like, babe, my heart's so there. And I've been, you know, protesting and supporting people who are going through that grief, like through my ministry work. And at the same time, holding space on the other side for my friends who have family out in Israel, who have been also experiencing that grief. And it's been very interesting, like, towing that middle path of like, yeah, my heart, you know, is with both. And so how do I communicate this in a world that really asks me to choose?
Yeah, they want you to pick.
Everyone, you know, people do want me to pick.
Yeah, and it obviously does come from a place of love.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, when I tune into my own personal DNA and my own pains about the world, like, I do feel my heart is with Palestine, and it's like the underdog. Like, my heart has been so with Palestine. And it's been interesting wanting to be a peace builder and being like, how do I do that? Stand up for what I believe in and also be a bridge builder, because I do believe in people coming together around these very difficult themes, you know? So
yeah. What have you been doing in terms of like, educating around this stuff, or having conversations, and how's that been, you know, showing itself in
yeah. So it's mainly been in like facilitating circles for people who feel grief on the different sides, and just being that middle person whilst they listen to each other. And that has felt like enough. And it's been really beautiful, because I think sometimes, listening circles for any situation, you know, it could be couples therapy or family constellations or anything. I think when different people are hurting about something and they see things from their own perspectives, I think there's nothing like everyone just sitting, sharing, listening, not trying to convince each other, not shaming each other for our belief systems, and actually just holding the space. I think
that's the most progressive space to be in.
Yeah, it just feels
when you don't have to get anywhere.
Exactly.
You can just listen.
Exactly. And respect each other for wherever we're at. I remember doing that type of work as well, like during or the BLM times as well. And like, I don't know, I think in a world that sort of drives polarity through the media and everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, I think that there is something in letting humans be humans and letting there be diversity of opinions and voices and thoughts, and us just being like, oh, we see things from different perspectives and not trying to enforce onto others. So and I have to constantly learn that, because you know me, I'm such a disruptor, and you know, like sometimes
yes and no though, I think.
Yeah,
it's like you have both sides.
I do.
Like I can see that even in the way you're communicating now. It's like you want to be that bridge.
Yeah,
like, that's why you're going through the interfaith stuff. I feel it's like,
yeah,
how can you like be a part of the conversation, which is tearing the world apart essentially. And there's so much grief. I was in a mushroom ceremony the other day, and I had this big crazy like opening around like, and it was nothing profound. It was around like everyone is singing the same song to themselves or with other people. Like everyone's kind of singing the same songs. You talk about different religions, the same song is the interconnection of everything, and love being like the premise. It's all the same theme. It's the same song, and everyone's dancing to the song, but in very different ways. And the song gets quieter and quieter, and the dance gets more kind of uplifted, and like, and the whole analogy was, how can you remain listening to the song whilst like dancing in the rhythm of it, because it gets lost. The rhythm changes and the song kind of gets further away. The more and more we be in the world, it's like be in the world but not of the world. The more and more we like, I guess, integrate back into the spaces of wherever we're interrelating or just residing or wherever it might be. It's like, how can I mainly, it's mainly about me, how can I keep listening to that song that I know, and as like there's a deep sense of knowing, like especially in that ceremony space where it's like the knowing of like what I'm a part of, what I can keep strengthening with like a dedication to my mission or like my practice or like myself, and how that just can affect everything, because we can all know we're interconnected and we rely on each other. That's like, that's intellectual, but there's a knowing there. But how can we like act in that way? How can we be and how can we live in that way? And for me, that's just the dance of how we walk into a room, how we go into different spaces, and keep like showing up with that knowing, listening to the song.
Well, actually, so one of the things with the
cacao.
training, I'm loving the cacao. One of the things with my training that I'm doing is that we have been specifically asked not to, well, I don't know if we have been asked or actually I've been asked, because a pattern of mine has always been like feeling challenged in relationships and cutting people off, or feeling challenged in communities and cutting those off. And actually my big like learning and practice this year has been staying in challenging relationships, staying in challenging friendships, staying in challenging communities. And when that fire is burning and I want to get out, like finding what is the opportunity here, what is the beauty here, like can I actually grow from being in this space of discomfort, and can I grow next to someone who I'm feeling extremely challenged by? And I sometimes joke about it, but this year I feel like I've healed through some of the communities I'm part of. I've healed like my relationship with like fucking venture capitalists, you know, and like, you know, like all the judgments and things I had there. I've like healed a lot around white men, even, like, you know, a certain type of person and of privilege, and you know, I've really healed that.
What does that look like? What's that healing look like before and after?
I think obviously like with the years, like with the last years and things that have come up like in the world, there's been a lot of stories running through me and the consciousness in general. And I think I was actively like keeping myself away from certain types of people based on judgments I had around them. And so just by off chance, like the universe literally put me in a pool of where I'm surrounded by people who like challenge those like beliefs inside me, and it's just been so wonderful. Like again, like having your blind spots cracked open, like becoming more compassionate, realizing that you're carrying stuff based on that's like more ancestral than anything as well. Like fucking hell. Because that's something I've sometimes been learning, that when something's happening with me and someone, it's not actually us. It's like where we come from, and the fact that we're just literally going through the motions of healing something bigger than us. Like, and that's been quite, that's been really beautiful to just understand, you know. And often I just wish it for other people. Like, again, it just comes back to that bridge building. I just like feel like we could all do with being like put in different communities and like being the odd one in that community. And do you know what I mean? I think we just could all learn.
Yeah, that we're all biased.
Yeah,
to some extent.
Yeah, we have so many biases, you know. Yeah, I mean, where can we go from here? But
I'd love you to take us back.
Back where?
Back to you and your journey. I think like early days, like what were some life-defining moments in your upbringing? I think I really love
upbringing,
to,
like early days.
Like if I was obviously we've got a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But like if to allow me to get to know you better, like what would you tell me? You know, some like real big moments of like you think formed who you are today.
Yeah. You know what? My dad was always a very busy man, and we got on so well. So I grew up in Zimbabwe. And so the first 15 years of my life were in Harare. And my dad was an academic, and every morning he'd be up early writing something really intensely, thinking whatever. And quite often I didn't really understand the whole concept of love. And you know your parents care about you when you're young, but you don't really understand the concepts, you know. And one day I was like playing by a pool, and it was before I'd learned how to swim, and I went in and I was drowning, and my dad, who was like 50 meters away in deep conversation as always with other academics, came running in all his clothes and like pulled me out. And I just remember in that moment being like understanding what love was and knowing that this person really cared for me. And I think it formed my understanding. It formed one of my, what do they call it? It's not your attachment style, but it formed one of my love languages.
Sure, yeah.
So that's something that formed one of my love languages. And so for me, a love language that was formed from my early childhood is like being in service, doing some sort of action to show people when I care about them. And it's something I only realized this year, that like, when I care about people, I make things for them. I go out of my way somehow, you know. And that's been, that's something from my childhood. Also, I was very much raised by my grandmother, who's my mum's mum, and her friends, the Helping Hand. And the Helping Hand were basically this incredible group of Xhosa women who they were expats from South Africa who'd married Zimbabwean men, so living in Harare. And they basically formed this group of like Xhosa women, mamas, who if anything happened in the community, you'd call the Helping Hand, and the Helping Hand would come, give prayers, help at your wedding, cook in the kitchen, like whatever. And so I grew up not only with this like academic thinking, celebrations, family, but like my grandmother and her friends who were so much about like community and service and sisterhood and being inappropriate, because like old ladies can get away with it, right? And a lot of love and simplicity, basically. Yeah, so not like super wealthy family, but like always somehow felt abundant and a lot of love. There were also, like, I don't want to, paint a beautiful picture entirely, and I'm sure my mum, if she's listening to this, won't mind me sharing. There were also some pretty difficult things I experienced as a child, from physical and sexual violence that I was angry about, that when I think about now, I still feel like a lot of pain around. However, I hate to sound this. I sound like such a hippie who's doing way too much inner work, but I have come to find the gift in some of the like really awful things that I experienced as a child. And, I always wondered why I'm so sensitive, why I feel so much, why I can often extend compassion when people have hurt me. More than others in my adult life, and it's from those experiences as well.
You've been there.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
it's your superpower.
Yeah. So that is a superpower. What else from growing up? My grandpa is probably the first person who taught me how to meditate. He used to sit outside, Grandpa Joe. He used to sit outside in his garden and just stare at his garden, and I'd be like, what are you doing? And obviously he didn't say he was meditating. We spoke in Shona very often. Shona is a Zimbabwean language. And he just said, just sit and enjoy the garden. And I so I remember that from quite a young age, because there's an oldness in my spirit. From quite a young age, I've always enjoyed just sitting and looking at trees or plants, and I just feel so calm. And I learnt that from quite a young age in my grandpa's veranda, basically. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
So it reminds you of that. And it's like it is a meditation, right? Just being with something, just being really present with the tree.
Yeah. Yeah, and I because I spent like up to 14 with my grandparents a lot, like I really underestimate how they formed a lot of my behaviors, like, their slowness. Like I wanted to be them because I so looked up to their gentleness. And
they're the gurus, the grandparents.
Yeah. And the way they loved each other was so like beautiful and real. Like, they went to different churches. They didn't really do the same, they didn't hang out with the same friends, but there was this like acceptance and real togetherness.
Commitment. It's just the consistent commitment of choosing one person. Unwavering sense of like, that's the person I'm going to die with, And oddly, actually, on that, I mean, I can't believe I'm sharing this on this podcast, but yesterday last year I married myself. So as part of my training, we have to write these ceremonies. And last year I did a commitment to self-ceremony. But yesterday was a massive day for me, people, because I got married to my imaginary partner. Wow.
So I spent the last 6 weeks in like deep planning of this ceremony. I know, I wish I'd brought the script.
Tell me about this imaginary partner.
Oh my goodness. So they are, I didn't want to put a name on them or a gender on them.
Yeah,
so
no need.
They're currently called Beloved One.
Okay.
Very cheesy. And it was very interesting. So on this course, I had to create a wedding ceremony for myself, but be the celebrant as well. So as the celebrant, I had to take myself and my imaginary partner through through preparations and steps that would lead to this massive moment and transition.
How did that look? What was that?
How did that look? So it all began some weeks ago with, do I want to get married?
Good question.
And I actually realized I'm not for the whole being owned and like brides being given away, like all those sort of things.
Given away.
Yeah. I just think it's just
the statement
let's give her away. You know, I'm not for the sort of patriarchal, the conditionings around the modern entrapment around the modern marriage, but I am for sacred union, and like, did you want to?
Yeah, I just think it's like they're the same thing, but they're just seen, or they can be held in a different way, can't they? It's like you can look at visually the same thing, but it's just how is it actually, what's the intention there?
Yeah.
And are you checking your own blind spots in that space?
Exactly.
With like the conversations, and I mean, it gets quite deep for people, but it's just another way of relating to that experience, because I know people have rejected it because of this, because of the chaos that's ensued over the last couple of generations around marriage, and just how much that holds for people still, because it's quite confusing at times. But then rejecting it completely, is that healthy? Because it can push you all the way over here, and it's like a swing of the pendulum, and can we bring that into center, and like having that moment of like just being with someone, like choosing them, and like having the circle, having a ring that really binds you. I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, and that was interesting, just being like, okay, do I want to do this? And I did realize I do want that. Even though I come from a divorced mum and dad, I do have some examples around of sacred unions that have lasted. And like, I really love, because I've slept around so much. Used to put on play parties, like sucked a lot of cock, and then decided to be a lesbian. Like, like when I do things, I like to do them really well. But now, so now, like, something that's actually exciting for me is being committed, or committing, is going through or learning how to maintain a sustained relationship.
Wow.
And so the answer was yes. And the steps I took in the lead up to yesterday, the big day, was, so the first thing I did was it was really big work. I went through all my relationships, all the past relationships that I had, wrote down all their names, and then went through a journaling practice of writing how the relationships started, ended, the challenges, the learnings, and the gifts from each one. And I've got enough to fill a book. Well, it's not, that's an exaggeration. But anyway, so I went through all my significant relationships, like since I was 18, and did that piece of work. And then I went to the park, and I've got this soil that I have from my family home in Zimbabwe, and I went, and for each of the people I laid our relationship and anything that I might not know hadn't healed down to rest, and for that to heal. And it felt very powerful. And I think if I hadn't had this wedding coming up, I wouldn't have taken the time to truly revisit, see the patterns, what I'd played out, what had played out, but also like really consciously put anything to rest that I might not have seen at the time,
That's so powerful. So such powerful accountability to let go of all of that which was.
And I really recommend it for everyone, because it was like some of them years later, or a bit of time later, and actually one a bit more recent. It just allowed space for me to actually see some of the patterns that had been playing out that I actually didn't realize. and so it wasn't even about them or what had happened. It was just like, oh, I see what's been going on, what my soul's been playing out. Right, might stop that, might look out for that in the future, So that was an interesting practice. And I really do recommend it, whether you're getting married or not.
Yeah, it might just be taking yourself out for a date, which is kind of lower down on the scale of commitment or seeming so big.
Yeah.
Just taking yourself out to dinner or and just really like being with yourself.
Yeah.
In that process.
Yeah, in that process. And then, so did that. And then after that, and meanwhile, during all of this, I started chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. So it's a Buddhist chant. I was going through the Buddhist gateway at the time in my ministry training. I'm now in Islam, so that's a whole other conversation. But underpinning this entire process was Buddhism, Buddhist practices, Buddhist teachings, just for context. And then after the relationships, I then did something called a walking with ancestors practice, and it's where you take your parents, your different ancestors, for walks, and you walk very slowly, like Buddhist mindful practice walking, and you're with that ancestor and you're listening to the messages that that ancestor has for you, and you're integrating anything that that ancestor may have passed on to you, because obviously our ancestors' seeds remain in us.
So you're taking them to walk whereabouts?
Just anywhere. So I took my dad and for a walk, and that was really lovely, because I hadn't gone on a walk with my dad for a long time. He passed away, so I was like, oh my God, this is so great. So I went for a walk with my dad. We were talking, I was listening, I was just trusting whatever was coming through. And a lot of integration happened there. And then I took my dad and my mum for a walk. And I realized, because my parents divorced when I was 4, I'd never gone walking with my mum and dad. And that was interesting, because I was just like, this has never happened. Like, why has this never happened? And through that, just got a lot of, I know there's psychic aspects of me. I just got a lot of wisdom around their relationship, a lot of missing pieces, but a lot of understanding about my relationship to relationship and what I'd learned from them or what I'd taken on from them. So that was beautiful to just get that perspective. And then I did the same for my grandparents on my mum's side and my grandparents on my dad's side. And my grandparents on my dad's side was even more interesting, because they were never together. It was one of those accidental situations. So that was interesting, because I got so much information from there that I didn't realize was in my DNA, that obviously my dad had felt about, it being a quote unquote mishap. And also it being a relationship that happened when it was illegal for black and white people to get together in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe back in the day. So I'd sort of, your history, your ancestry, but until I went on that walk, I didn't realize that was in me. Their pain was in me. Their parting was in me. And actually doing the walk helped integrate some of that and help me understand why I had been playing out certain things as well. And so after walking all my ancestors, easy peasy, obviously over a few days, don't try and do everything all at once, people. I then did the same thing. I went out to the park with the soil and I laid those couples and their relationships to rest and thanked them for everything, all the learnings and showings that they'd brought into my life.
Do you feel that people can only do this with people they've met, or can this be extended into
I think it can be extended to people you haven't met, because I didn't spend a lot of time with my dad's real dad, so that was a whole new experience for me. I didn't know, I'd never seen my grandma and grandpa. Like, I didn't know the things that came out would come out. I'm trying to respect them and not obviously share the details, but I didn't realize how, like, intentionally doing a ritual like that can actually tune you in with literally that time, that relationship, what happened, but also how each individual felt like in relation to what happened. Like, I didn't realize that. I mean, I guess I can talk more into the sort of culture, race stuff. I think that was really hard to, like, love each other and want to be each other, but it being illegal.
Yeah.
Like, and I think in hindsight, I've played that out a little bit in the way I choose really difficult partnerships that are almost either can be unrequited or are not really possible.
Sure.
And so...
yeah, it's what's familiar.
Exactly, it's what's familiar, right? So now that I'm aware of that and even speaking it, like, it's something that I feel is releasing.
For sure.
Already.
I think the biggest thing I get from that is, like, the ability to listen. Because if I'm just trying to imagining, like, myself taking my ancestors out for a walk, and I'm thinking, like, there would be some deep listening going on, because I'd have to really tune in. Like, I doubt I'd be saying much. It would be more about, like, what I can hear, what I can sense, and how I can, like, understand their life and their experience and how they, you know, grew as a human and what they were exposed to and what life was like for them. You know, it's a really powerful practice. Yeah. I'll let you know.
Yeah, like, I think it was like a listening, and I really recommend, if you do it, you have to walk super slow and like, there is a way of walking, like, slow, feeling the earth on the, you know, feeling each step, breathing, consciously calling them near you and saying, I'm ready to listen. How are you?
Wow.
Tell me your story.
What's on the other side of that?
Yeah, so on the other side of that, I actually don't know. You've caught me right in the middle. So then I did that, and then I wrote my shadow vows.
Shadow vows.
Of course. So I think if...
So interesting.
I know.
Have you ever been at a wedding where they've talked about shadow
I
vows?
haven't. But
I'd like to.
Yeah, but I thought I just really wanted to for myself, and I think when I do actually get married, I do want to do it because it was really cathartic. So I wrote my shadow vows.
I want to talk about, really.
I read them to a friend at the weekend in the lead up to this week, where I was going to obviously read my more beautiful vows. But yeah, my shadow vows were like, things like, I own that. I can't think of them, but I'll think of something now. But it's an example is I own that when I'm feeling really insecure, I might overcompensate by being overly creative or like being overly needy or something like that. Or I own that sometimes I may not feel as financially adequate as I think you might need me to be, and that will play out in X, Y, and Z ways. So
the one thing I can think of is, like, what I'd likely write is, like, trying to get attention through, like, exposing, like doing a workout and then walking around in my boxers and being like, I'm just trying to get attention because I don't feel good, or like doing something subliminal that would, like, get someone's attention. It's like a shadow side of me that's, like, needing, like, some sort of validation or attention. It's not nice.
Yeah, so that is a shadow vow that you could write and share with a future partner if it was something like, sometimes I might, I'm a person who, I own that I'm a person who does need a lot of attention and affirmation in words, and sometimes you'll see me prancing around the house like a little unicorn / peacock, because all I really want is for you to stroke me and tell me how amazing I am, and that might annoy you sometimes, so it's just naming some of the things that are the reality
absolutely,
within relationships as well.
So you're married?
So then yesterday was the big day, and that was like, it was surprisingly, like, I went through literally all the motions. So I did the ceremony I did the ceremony, did the readings, did the vows, and honestly, like, felt, so I got married in 2 different ways. So the first way was through lighting a unity candle. It's a Filipino ritual that I learned from a couple I married actually this year, and I'm a celebrant as well. So I lit, so one member of each side of the family come and light a candle, and then the couple then light one candle together in unison, and that's a way of marrying the 2 lineages. So that was one way. And then the second way was a hand fasting, where I tied a symbol around myself and my partner, and that was like a cord to unify, but also as a symbol of unwavering strength and togetherness, and so that was one way. And then and the vows, we read our vows, and then the final way was just the traditional way, like in sickness and in health, till death do us part stuff. So
what do you think is the most symbolic thing of this?
When you, I guess the most symbolic thing,
like I guess that I'm after, like, what the like number one of, like, reason,
the reason of
why I went through this,
why I went through this. I think I went through this for the journey, actually, off the prep work. It was, I think because I really did, like, I was like, whoa, this is incredible. Like, I would not have gone through all those relationships and, like, done all this I dotting, T crossing. I would not have gone through all the inquiry of my ancestry and how that's impacted my relationship, because I wouldn't have felt the accountability to someone else. And then the shadow vow process was so impactful for me, because we're not perfect. Like, I remember actually saying that to one of my exes. Like, I remember, like, her being like rah, rah, about something, no offense if you're listening, and me being like rah, rah, about something, and me being like, babe, I'm not a cardboard cutout from Harrods. But actually, I think a lot of the time we don't create space to name our shadows when we're going into relationship with people. Like, these are some of the ways I play out. Like, these are some of the ways I might act if X, Y, and Z. I don't think we're in a society, a culture yet that enables that. So me writing those vows and then saying them to someone, a friend at the weekend, felt like so relieving, because suddenly I wasn't hiding all this shit about me that sometimes comes out that I just don't know. Do you know what I mean? So that's been such a great gift. And then the vows themselves, like realizing what I do want to say and then channeling what I hope to hear from someone and actually feeling like I deserved to hear that. And I think that was a big thing. Like, it was incredible realizing that I feel deserving to hear that, because as a person who's been a serial single person most of my life, like, I didn't really realize I was kind of, dare I say it, ready for some form of look at me evading, like, I'm based, I was like ready
You're
for some form of, I'm vaguely ready for some form of, that's like such a commitment. I'm skirting around it. But what I did realize from the process is that I do want the romance. I do want the commitment, and I do want to hear those words from someone. And I feel really feel a bit vulnerable right now. It was lovely to hear the words and to see that I was receiving them.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yes. So what I get from that is that it would have been so easy to just not do that.
Yeah.
It would have been so easy to just be like, I don't need to hear yours, these are mine.
Yeah.
But like in that moment of like, no, let's really go all in on this.
All
and not
in.
Shy away and just be like, can I hold that when I don't need to? Because you can actually choose not to hear someone, or like not to fully take something in when they're really speaking to, but to do that to yourself, like to really like take that
and film the whole thing. I filmed the whole thing. I've got a 42-minute one woman show of me playing like 7 different parts of a whole wedding ceremony that I'm actually going to submit to my tutors. And I'm very, when you're like, I was watching it and I literally was cracking up. I was like, okay, I'm not sure the world should see this, but maybe the world could see it one day. But that's been interesting, that I do know it's going to be observed. So it's
so this was part of the...
It's part of the training, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I could see this, like, I mean, it likely is. I don't know. I think it's the first time I've heard of, like, that process.
Yeah.
But I could... what would the world look like if we reached a certain age and we had to do this?
Yeah.
Of some sort. I don't know what that looks like, but it's a powerful practice for sure.
Totally. And like in a world, I think also in a world that asks us to, it doesn't ask us or force us, but when people are like, oh, so you're married? Are you in a relationship? Oh, you're coming on 40 now, or coming on this. Like in a world where, like being married or being coupled up is such a thing, I've actually found this ceremony like one of the most liberating things, because I realized that I can give that to myself, and I can go through those processes, like all that prep, go through those processes on myself, and also feel the benefits and the feelings whilst doing it. So that's been interesting. I mean, I even had the anticlimax after, like the post-wedding blues of like, done all this, been 15 pages of a script, had the big day, and then after just being a bit like, so
the honeymoon.
I've got a honeymoon, so I'm going to South Africa and Zimbabwe next week.
Wow.
And we'll be with my family, so I can't think of a better way.
How will they feel about this? Will you communicate?
I probably will communicate it. I think, as always, I'll just be like, that's Sam. Like, I think my my family, my mum.
I'm a speaker too.
Yeah, my mum always says the one thing about being my parent is just letting me be. And sometimes she doesn't understand why I'm doing certain things, but she knows there might be a good reason. So I'll share, and they'll be like, but can you meet someone in real life, please? But I know they'll also be, supportive as always.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone else who's done this? Like, how many are on the course? So
in my class, I think some people have decided to marry different other people, and I'm not allowed to talk about other people in terms of the course, but I do recommend the school. It's called Onespirit Interfaith Foundation, and the great thing about this training is it's not just about being a celebrant or a minister, but it really forces you to embody like the ceremonies you are going to do, and come up with the the way those ceremonies are going to be done in your own unique way.
Yeah.
And I think that's so invaluable that they're like, if you're going to be marrying people, you need to go through the whole process so that you understand what those people are going through. You know, right down to the vulnerability, the confronting feelings, the, you know, am I actually ready? You know, I wouldn't have, if I hadn't taken myself through the process, I wouldn't have the insight that I know I'm going to need when taking others through that threshold, you know?
Sure.
So
just like you said about the dating yourself, that to me is similar, because it's like, how can you bring in something and live it now, you know? Like calling in a future, so I want this to happen, I want that to happen. Well, why can't that be now? Like, can I access that feeling now? So it's kind of like a manifesting, you know, situation, because you almost becoming an energy that you want to be familiar with, you want to associate with. So marrying yourself in this capacity, you really are calling in a future that you want to live, because you're living it now, and you get to know that feeling. You know what it feels like to be in that space with yourself or another, and generally it is about yourself, just to hold like so much love and care for yourself. Like, that's how I want to feel. That's how I can feel. And then when I'm in a relationship partnership, I know if it's there or not, you know.
And I think you've just hit the nail on the head. Is the thing I realize is I can meet myself before meeting someone else, and I can meet the things in me that I've been looking for without needing someone else to meet those things. And that's what this self ceremony really did. I like, if you can, out there, write yourself some vows, write yourself the shadow vows, write yourself the vows that you would say to a potential lover, and also see what comes through when you tune into that potential lover, and write what the vows they would say to you, and then say both vows out loud in front of a mirror, and just notice how you feel. Like, it's pretty, it was spectacular.
Is this what everyone was doing at the date night?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about what's going on in the world, what's happening in London dating.
Oh, my goodness. So me and my friend Ron, like, I think he won't mind me sharing. I will not share his surname. But we, like, a while ago just decided we wanted to meet new people. And we didn't know how, because we are both busy and also know lots of people. So it's almost like you don't, it's a weird one.
What was the motivation?
Well, the initial motivation was that at the time I fancied someone, and I actually was like, oh, I don't want to put my eggs in one basket, because I wasn't feeling 100% like secure. And so, like, literally, I think I say too much. I could have left some of this out. But anyway, I was feeling not very secure, and I thought, actually, I don't want to put pressure on this thing. So what if I started a matchmaking night with my friend, and we just invited people, and that would be a way of meeting new people.
Yes.
So we set up this.
You invited this person.
Yeah. No. God, no. Told them about it, but didn't invite them. So set up this night, and the whole concept was that it was our friends, and our friends were each encouraged to bring a friend, and we want to start a new sort of dating culture that is not very much about like trying to get a date from the room, but that is like you come to these events and you're curious about everyone, because you don't know who you'll meet, and if maybe their friend, they'll have a friend who they introduce you to. Sure. So the whole thing isn't about like,
it's all about connections.
It's about connections. It's not about like going to this thing and it being like an intense dating
experience
thing.
You have a connection.
Exactly. We do some pair work where we get people to, to do some reckoning and reflecting and sharing, and that's powerful because I think we could all do with that practice.
A lot of walls up.
So many walls. However, what was lovely and why we're doing another one on the 15th of January is because we've realized that it's not about it being for hooking up. It's actually about it being for us practicing making new friends and seeing where that goes. And obviously the underlying theme is maybe we'll get laid one day. But that's like a far away distant need. There was also something that came through, which is actually just wanting to, I know a lot of people, but post-pandemic, I'm like still finding that I'm looking for my people in London, like a lot of I've got like amazing like creative friends, entrepreneurial friends, and everything feels, like not work related, but I've just been like looking for something else as well. And so what was lovely about Friends of Friends is sort of brought together different kinds of people. And we didn't talk about what anyone did or who anyone was. And actually, some people I don't even know their names, but it was about connecting with each other and like
bridging communities.
And
intentionally having to do that again, because we were all in our own echo chambers and we all experience the same stuff, and it can get just quite, I don't know, it depends on what your goals are, like how you're showing up in the world. But for me, it's like we believe we're like, if I'm in certain spaces and we believe we're making an impact and like and being as inclusive as possible, but like inclusive in how many circles, how does that how does that translate into the mainstream of things? Because it might not. And I think like trying to find ways that you can bridge certain circles and bridge echo chambers essentially, because you're all in your own kind of way. Obviously social media does that, but it also exaggerates it as well.
But I like that, bridging echo chambers. I think that's exactly it. It's like, how do we create these new hangout spaces that bridge different worlds? And I think that's at the foundations of Friends of Friends. And alongside that, we've got a black book that is have you filled in the black book? I need to send you this link. Got a black book link, which people fill in and they share what they're looking for. Okay. And me and Ron go through it and we see if we can match people up. So, that's
it's great. I know exactly what I'm looking for.
It's
great. I feel like at this
there's
age,
lots of amazing women.
There's lots of amazing men.
In the forms.
Form.
So we need more men. So if there's any men listening, I'm gonna give Chris the link. Please sign up.
Give you that power of getting inundated.
No.
But I think at this age, like I'm 35 next year.
Okay.
But like it feels really great to know myself well enough to get into a healthy relationship. Like I know what doesn't serve me, and I know myself that much now. It's actually easier for me to find someone because I know what when you're young, you're drawn in different directions. It was unconscious for me a lot of the time. So it's like knowing what my patterns are, knowing what the templates are, knowing what like opportunities come in, and like what the resistance is when I'll meet someone. It's like, if there's resistance, maybe like lean into that. It's not a signal to just eject, but if it's
I like that.
It's like understanding these different ways of relating, and like if it's all it's all one thing, or it's all just like magical and there's just so much energy, maybe not. Because that's it's not worked for me before, and too much of like that spark is like ungrounded actually. But how can I meet someone in their like raw authentic humanness and like maybe it's not even someone that, and this is the bridging, it's like, maybe it's healthy for me not to be around people and a partner who's like me, who's exactly the same, because then we can check in on each other and like see each other's blind spots more so than if we were both doing the same thing. I don't think it's one or the other, but I think there's different ways of seeing.
It's definitely not one or the other. And something I really value now is friends with different opinions and friends who see the world in a different way, because that was actually one of the things in my vows, is like I imagined that future person saying that they promised to be like another perspective and to bring another perspective, because they know I value that. And I really...
Should we try and disagree on something?
Yeah.
We haven't
yet.
We need to.
I'm sure we will. We will. We're both very strong characters.
I think so, yeah.
We'll get there. We'll pull through somehow. We'll look in each other's eye and go, I fucking love you, but don't piss me off, mate.
Yeah, but I think this should not happen.
You're like, I think that should not happen.
It's a part of me on the podcast. I'm holding space. I'm asking questions. Being really curious. Curiosity is like the gift I could bring to this. But then it's like I'm just agreeing with a lot of the stuff that would I agree with if I wasn't on the podcast. So that's trying to create congruence in like how if I say the value of the podcast is authenticity, then how can I just challenge and just I want to do that more, essentially.
I think if that's if that's something that's coming through, definitely do. Like, I know Sam, when I'm being Sam the minister or Sam the celebrant, I have to take my own personal beliefs out of the way to be in service of the people. And it doesn't matter if they've got views that I don't believe in. My job is to marry those people, be in service to them, spiritual counsel them, like accompany and believe in their highest good. And it does not matter what I believe when I'm in that role. However, when I'm Sam the speaker, motivational speaker, and I'm there spreading a message or something like that, that's where I feel I can have and share an opinion. So I think it's for you to decide, like, what is this podcast? Do you want it to be a place where different speakers come and they feel like it's a place where you're holding space for them and all of that? Or do you want it to be a place where actually it's about different views being brought to the table, being shared, and that's okay if you don't agree? Like, do you know what? Like, again, through this training that I've been in, which I believe really is leading me to be a peace builder in the future, I have learnt so much the value of disagreeing in a really good way, and like
being able to hold that,
and being able to hold that, and someone being like, actually, Sam, like, I realized I'm more okay with saying sorry when I don't when I've gotten something wrong this year than I've ever been. But it's interesting, people are still afraid about confrontation somehow. I think there's something in the culture where people are afraid of confrontation, whereas I'm actually okay with getting in a confronting situation and with the right people, because I know that we can move through it and land and land somewhere like good, honest, authentic, you know?
I think there's could go so many ways with this. But there's yes and no. Like, there are people that just love conflict.
I know.
It actually, what I observe is that they don't have to focus on themselves if they're constantly at war with something else. And I witness that, and I'm like, well, surely it starts here. Like, is what you're standing for with your voice, with your actions, like what you're also standing for with you, and that might be food or whatever it might be. Food's a big one that I don't actually talk about on the podcast too much, because I know I've sort of strong opinions about it.
Okay, what are your opinions? This is your moment. You don't have to share. It's all good. I don't even know.
But then I've been also wrong about lots of things. So I'm like, it's just a build-up of energy. that I have of like what is and isn't food, and do we all understand that? And can we be just a hypocrite? I'm a hypocrite. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I'll have a value around this, but then I'll also sometimes do this. But I'm aware of it, you know, with food, because it's just one thing. I'm not. It's not black and white. The day is different to tomorrow, and you know, and food. Yeah,
and I think that's really it. Like, and this is where I'm arriving to. Like, nothing is binary. The world isn't binary anymore. And I think where we used to be in a world that was more patriarchy, we're now moving into matriarchy, rebalancing. You know, a little bit of everything. And part of that is this thing about there isn't one truth. There's sometimes multiple truths. There's always more than one solution to any challenge. And it's okay to have two-pronged approaches to life, sexuality, gender, all the things. And yeah, I'm really... And I think as humans, we are still learning this as well. I think as humans, we are still learning how to host this like me, even as a non-binary person, who doesn't mind the pronoun she, her as well, just so anyone knows. Like I understand and host that, and at the same time, I still feel like I'm still learning to have multiple perspectives on certain issues, and to allow that within my system. So
truth, just a lot of sides of truth, right?
Exactly.
You can have a truth, it's different to the truth.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, I mean, this is like really bold of me to say. I think the only one truth is that there is love and there is light, and that we are all made of light. That for me has been the only, as Oprah says, what's the thing that you know for sure? The only thing I know for sure is that we're all made of light. And when you zoom into each humans, all our particles are light. And we are on planet Earth, which is part of the Milky Way galaxy. And I think sometimes we forget.
Which isn't going to be around forever.
Exactly.
In this iteration.
So when it comes to truth, for me, everything is movable.
Sure.
But that is the only thing that feels true. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest things you've been wrong about this year?
This year, God. Golly. Where should I begin? I've been wrong. Well, God, this is deep. And you know me, I'm like just going to out myself. I hope I don't end up in jail. So I think a really big thing I had was that since closing my last business, there's some things I just hadn't resolved because I was feeling, you've known me actually since then. It was
about 10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, since closing Morning Gloryville. So now about 4 or 5 years now.
Okay, so that started in 2013?
Yeah, but as in when I closed, like when I exited. Sure. So when I stopped doing it. So one of the things since leaving that business was because I had such a mindfuck mental breakdown on leaving. I actually didn't have a team, etc. I actually just did not deal with some of the things, the administrative things, like just financially, tax-wise, company's house, like there was just lots of stuff that I just left hanging because I had such a mental breakdown. And one of the things I had to do this year, well, I didn't have to actually, I chose to do, was contact my bank, contact HMRC, and actually just be honest and be like, I'm really sorry to my bank. I've been an absolute pelican. This is what happened. I've been avoiding it because I've literally just not known what to do about this £60,000. Like, it was just hanging over my head. And lo and behold, my bank actually ended up pardoning me and of 18,000, and the other amount was given to the government. And I ended up, just through sheer honesty and admitting that I had really seriously fucked up and done things that wasn't right, aka not attending to that really important admin, which I now also call spiritual bypassing. So by not attending to that and admitting it, I actually got the help that I needed.
Wow.
And that was really humbling. Yeah, that was really, really humbling. I think something that I'm currently working through is that I feel is something that I'm still trying to get right, is my relationship with smoking cigarettes. Like, I really, it has, like, and this is the thing with addiction, right? Like, I'm like, oh, it's really good for me, I'm less of a bitch, you know, I'm so much nicer, but I
find a way to justify
ways to justify it. But I am noticing how smoking cigarettes is stopping me from taking responsibility for my health and fitness. And so, of course, I'm like, when I go to South Africa, I'll be with my family, so I won't be smoking. So therefore, that will be my thing. But I feel like something I have been getting wrong is my, like, relationship with my health. And actually, yeah, when I'm working on an intense project, I'm like so on it, blah, blah, blah. And when I'm not, for some reason, I let myself off a bit. So I think there's something there I'm not quite getting right on the self-love front. So that's something. I realize my communication with, when I fancy people, is appalling.
In what way?
In the sense that I either don't tell them in weird ways, or it's basically, there's something when I basically express like a creative mystic, like, and so I'm learning to put words to things.
Like being elusive a little bit.
I'm quite elusive. I'm quite aloof. And I really saw that about me this year, and it feels like, yeah,
do you feel that is what is attractive about you also?
Probably, but to be honest, I'm like, like, I fancied someone for a really long time, and I just did not tell them. But I didn't realize I didn't tell them because I was doing all this stuff.
You thought you were. I
thought I was, but I realized actually I wasn't. And so I think there's something in the way I communicate what I actually mean. And actually today I was speaking to a friend who was like, "Oh, you did these two." You said these two passive aggressive things, and actually then we went into why I'd said them, because it's not really my nature to like go at people. And I realized I did it because I was hurting and I was pissed off about stuff, but I wasn't saying it, so therefore it came out in weird ways. So there's just something around expressing what I mean, what I feel, when it's coming up, rather than doing it like later, or doing it in like really weird artistic ways, because that can be harmful or just seem like really weird. So yeah, and as I say that, I'm burping, releasing. So releasing.
I love this. The human experience. This is what it's about.
So I think those are three
a lot of people
things.
Can relate, right? And I think there's something to do with technology in the modern day and how we live, and it's quite easy to shut the door on something and never see it again. And it kind of plays to our shadows, our leakiness as humans, that like, just the times where we just can't deal with the thing, and actually we can put our phone down. We don't have to have the accountability like we would if we lived in a village and everyone sees what you have. There's some sense of that, and that's why I think it's so important to be in community, have friends.
Yeah.
I talk about this so much. It's like have friends that you really trust that can call you in when you
Yeah.
are not living up to your own standards.
Yeah, yeah,
Because anyone who loves you and knows you is going to be like, well, this isn't clearly conducive to your growth, and come on, let's stand for that first, you know. And it's powerful.
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you have
yeah.
those people around you.
Totally.
Sounds like you do.
Well, I think I do. I think I'm a little bit in. At the moment I am grieving a community.
So when did you move back to London?
Yeah, so I moved in 2020, at the beginning of 22. Yeah, at the beginning of 22, and after 2 years in Devon, where I moved during the pandemic, where I had a beach party.
That looked amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, so I lived in Devon during the pandemic years, those historic years. And then I moved back to London because I felt like I was missing people and opportunity. And
I feel that I'm quite called to whenever that might be.
I think it's been good being in London. Like it's actually, it is good.
You can't compare it to any other city. It's like its own space in our country.
Totally.
And even in the world, I don't know. I've not been to too many major cities, but like I try and avoid them when I go travelling. But it's like, as a major city, it's a lot, and people are up for stuff in many ways, and that might just mean like showing up more, or just have. There's, of course, two sides to the same coin. There's people that haven't got any energy that live here. Yeah. But I feel you can find as you know, it's like finding a groove with certain people, and it can really catch an amazing wave and just go far quite quickly with people.
Yeah, and I think there is something. Yeah, I think there is something in me, because someone was like, "Why did you move back here?" And I think I still know that I still have things to learn from people here. And actually being in London in the last year, I do feel more resilient and more off this world. And if I'm honest, when I wasn't in London, I was missing the diversity that London breathes. You know, like I go round the corner and it's like, it feels like I'm in Africa, like round that corner, and then I go that way and I'm in a totally different part of the world again. So there is something about London that I didn't realize when I was living in the countryside is actually like a tonic, a medicine, you know? So that's been interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Powerful. So much to share.
I
know. We could go on. I think that might be a nice place to.
Yeah, we love London.
We end on love London.
Yeah. We are ending on we love London. We started with what does it mean to be human?
What does it mean to be a human in London? So what's alive in you right now? What are you here to create, and what are you excited about? What's to come?
Yeah, I'm so excited about going to South Africa and Zimbabwe and just being with my family. One thing I am thinking about for next year is what am I going to be creating artistically to express some of the things that I feel challenged by in the world. As I said to you, like I've always been a person who speaks up and says how I feel. I'm really curious about creating some sort of artistic project or performance that encapsulates some of the themes and things that give me pain and joy. So I guess there's something calling me into my artistry a bit more, and I don't know what that looks like. And the one big thing is obviously I'm marrying more people, doing more ceremonies, so I will share that link with you, Chris. If you are getting married or you want to marry yourself or have any blessings that you really want, I would love to be your celebrant. That's it.
Amazing. One more question about creativity, day to day. What does that look like for you? Do you have like things that you just go in on and just create? Like what's the kind of like practices that you do to help with your creativity?
So actually this is what I mean about the smoking. Sorry listeners, because I'm sure if anyone listens to Chris's, you're probably the healthiest people on this planet, and I did found Morning Gloryville and totally got everyone on this health and wellness tip, and then I'm really sorry to have let you all down with my nicotine sticks. But anyway, one of the things I have noticed is the time I am using smoking is usually time I would paint or draw or something like that. So one of my things when I come back in January is resetting up my easel, resetting up my painting station, because like I'm one of those people who does a bit of laptop and then I need to just play and do something with my head. I'm playing basketball in the mornings, and that's been incredible. So I'm, instead of going for a jog or to the gym, I do basketball whilst I call it basketball in Buddhism. So I shoot hoops whilst chanting Namyo Renge Kyo, because I am a nutter and love intense practices, basically.
I love that. With yourself or
with myself. Because it's just like shooting hoops, right? Like
that is a meditation.
So it's a meditation on presence and focus and
love it,
getting that ball in at the same time. So
amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been so wonderful being here and seeing your van. So incredible. And reconnecting with you.
Reconnecting and just learning a lot from you and the way you show up.
Likewise, and I hope you just say what you feel. It's your podcast, it's your platform. Some people love it, some people won't. Again, it's about meeting ourselves and trusting that you're coming from a place of love, and when you're not, you are in a learning
for sure. I think trusting myself as well. Trusting myself that I can hold the conversation, let's say it is about food, and I don't leak out too much that I'll later regret. So it's like trusting that I can show up to a conversation that like I have so much, I guess, opinion. I know I have a lot of opinion about that. Like I won't think, I don't want to say that, I shouldn't say that. It's like trusting myself just to be there, be in that arena. I know that I'm learning too. So then it's like strengthening the muscle of not judging and not like having too much charge around what I'm saying. Like just being centered and speaking from a place of integrity and love, also confidence that this is what's true for me and this is what I've understood. And
that's so interesting.
It is.
Yeah. I like that, not leaking too much. I'm sure I've totally failed on that front. Pinky promise, everyone. Let's keep it all in the podcast space.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Right. I want a hug.
Okay, great.